I would have known anywhere that she was my sister.
Catherine is the sibling of Margaret, who has a profound developmental disability.
Mom thought that she might be deaf. She spoke a little bit and then she basically stopped.
Catherine's story is really interesting because she did not know about Margaret until Catherine was 12 years old. And she didn't actually meet her until she was in her 20s and Margaret was in her 30s.
My mom took her to a doctor, the family doctor, and he said, well, I think you should see a specialist. And the specialist, as soon as he saw my sister, said to my mom, I don't understand you parents who won't accept the things that are wrong with your children. Your child is severely, profoundly retarded, and she will never be able to live a normal life, and she should be institutionalized. And my mom was just crushed.
It wasn't uncommon in the 50s and 60s for parents to institutionalize their children after being encouraged to do so by a family physician, thinking it was better for the family.
So she was just slightly over 2 years old, and we literally didn't know that she existed.
When you found out about your sister, what were your thoughts?
Well, my first thought was that I'd always wanted a sister. My second thought, of course, why didn't they tell us about her? I don't understand.
Eventually, the time came for Catherine to meet Margaret.
I was crying. My mom thought I was crying because I was so moved, and I said, no, I'm afraid. Because I just was, it was overwhelming.
But to her relief, there was an instant bond between the two of them.
I felt this connection with her as soon as I met her. When I saw my sister, she was beautiful. She looked like my mom and my dad, and she had my mom's beautiful eyes, which none of us got. I could see right away. I would have known anywhere that she was my sister.
Catherine's experience of the institution, however, wasn't so good.
We went to see her where she was living, which was Dixon Developmental Center. It was a very large institution, and they took us into a sort of a side hallway where the bedrooms were, and the door was locked, and they unlocked the door, and we came in, and there were about 20 women, and they were all just sort of wandering around in this hall, and there were a couple of hard chairs, folding chairs. Some of the women were sitting on the floor. There was no activity, just people kind of vocalizing and walking around, and I was terrified. I'd never seen anything like that. At that point, she was 37 and I was 27, so she had lived there for 35 years.
Catherine's parents didn't visit Margaret at the institution. They did, however, attend annual meetings.
And so I found out that they were going, and I insisted on going with them. Otherwise, I don't know when I would have met her.
At one of the meetings, it was mentioned that the institution would be closing, and they were looking for guardians for the residents. Catherine said that she would take care of Margaret.
And so my first job as guardian was to help her move. And not knowing very much about anything about disabilities or kinds of places where people could live, I looked at the other state institutions, and the one that was closest to me seemed much nicer. They were actually small homes with a small number of people living in them, and it was a little more like they were sort of like little townhouses or something. It wasn't as bad.
Catherine visited her often, and they continued to build their relationship. Catherine eventually moved Margaret again, but this time it was into an even better home.
I eventually helped her move out of there into what they call a Scylla home, or a group home, with just a few other ladies. So that was when she was 65.
Catherine's career has been influenced by Margaret. She has a master's degree in English, and she wanted to be an author. But after she met Margaret and saw the conditions of the residents living in the institution, Catherine felt that she needed to help these people.
I felt a call, I would say, that God was calling me to do something to help these people. When I saw the way she was living, I thought, this can't go on indefinitely. And I felt that I'd entered sort of an alternate universe, and I thought, oh my goodness, I've driven by places like this and I had no idea what was going on here, how people were living, what their life was like, and I've felt that ever since.
Typical of siblings of people with developmental disabilities, regardless of whether they grow up together or meet in their 20s or 30s like Catherine and Margaret, There is a unique and powerful bond.
I don't really have an explanation for that. I just know as soon as I saw her that we belonged together in some way.
Interesting.
And I mean, certainly it didn't hurt that she looked like my parents, but I don't think that would have made any difference. I don't know if she understands the concept of sister, not having grown up in a family, but she knows that I'm her sister, and she knows that I'm someone who's important in her life. And we just enjoy being together.
It is so rewarding to see the positive impact Catherine has had on Margaret's life, but also the impact Margaret has had on Catherine's life.
From my perspective, whatever the difficulties are, and there are some difficulties being a sibling who has a disabled sibling, I won't sugarcoat that. There are times when you feel very responsible and you don't always feel that other people understand what you're experiencing. But I think just the sheer joy and love of having a sibling like my sister, she loves me unconditionally. And that's something that very few people do. That she's just a joy in my life. My last thoughts would be that I'm very excited to live in a time when people are starting to accept diversity and everyone being included. And I wish that time had come earlier for my sister, but people often say to me, gosh, I'm interested to know your story because I think this could have been my daughter if she was born earlier.
Yeah.
A different time. And I think we have wonderful opportunities ahead of us.
Help us make more Orange Socks videos by clicking below to subscribe. And make sure you hit the bell so you never miss an Orange Socks video. You can also find more of our videos here. Thanks for watching.